It's on. Thank you. At this point, before we do the minutes, I'd like to ask Dr. Leader, who has been in the forefront of helping us to get hooked up with a Radnor High School intern, and her name is Allison Mosier Mills, and she is with us this evening. Dr. Leader, would you?
Sure. I think I had circulated Ms. Mills' resume to all of you, so you may have had a chance to look at it. But she and I have been in contact over the summer, and she's expressed a lot of interest in being with us this fall as our intern. And she has a really good experience already in public health and medicine. So I'll let her give us a few minutes description of her interest and why she would like to be with us.
Hi, I'm Allison, and I am a sophomore at Radnor High School. I'm really interested in public health and epidemiology and infectious diseases specifically. And this summer I volunteered at the Hospital of University of Pennsylvania, and I'm currently volunteering at Bryn Mawr Hospital. And it's been a very interesting experience to see different types of healthcare environments. And I think that the Radnor Board of Health would give me an opportunity to see how health functions in my community and compare that to the Philadelphia and to the world, hopefully, as I continue to study public health and global health. So,
Thank you. That's really a great background, and your interest speaks very well to our working together this next year, at least. Okay, for tonight, Ms. Mosier Mills, I will ask that you sit over there so you can watch the meeting more easily than may be possible from up here. And as we've discussed, one of your responsibilities in the future will be to take minutes, as well as I'm sure there will be various research projects in public health that will come up during the course of the year before us, which will end June 30th, 2011. But for tonight, just observe, and if there are any questions that you have afterwards, we'll be more than happy to respond. And speaking of minutes, two things. One is I would like to ask, because I have been taking the minutes for the past, I did for the first half of 2010, and just for tonight I would like to ask for a volunteer to do that. Among other things, I don't think I'm particularly good at it. So.
I don't mind help. Can do them tonight, and then that can transition over to Allison. So it'll give me good practice to then help Allison next month.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Leader. And then the minutes for the meeting of what are they? April or May 17th, 2010. Meeting notes are part of your packets. And so if everybody has had a chance to look them over, I would welcome a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. Any corrections, additions, deletions? Okay, then all in favor? Aye. Any contraries? Thank you. The minutes are approved as drafted, and Mr. Taltone, in getting them ready for the official files, so you can remove the word draft. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Taltone, at this point, I'll turn the meeting over to you for any announcements and your health officer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome back from the summer to all the board members. What I have is a report from June, July, August of 2010 regarding some of the activities that I have conducted as a health officer. We conducted 21 rental housing inspections. These, again, are the new units that were never inspected before. As they come online and become rental housing units, we need to make sure that they are safe and that they are being operated in a safe manner, so we do a rental housing inspections. We did 21. We did 67 food safety inspections in Radnor Township, 45 bathing place inspections, both indoor and outdoor pools, 33 citizen quality of life issues. I don't like to say the word complaints because I think people have a right to quality of life, so I like to use that term. Also, we have a lot going on as far as new food facilities coming into the township. We've had 2 opened up over the last 3 months. One is PB&U, which is located at 163 East Lancaster Avenue. It's a peanut butter and U is what it stands for. And you can get yourself a good peanut butter and banana sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, and you know there's a big draw for that. They actually grind up the peanuts and make the peanut butter right there. So that's new and it's opened up now. We also have opened up just recently is Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza, which is at 321, where the Acme is now in downtown Wayne. And shortly coming behind that, under construction currently, is Chipotle Mexican Grill. So that should be happening pretty soon. We also have in that same area Five Guys Pizzas going in there, and we're going to have Panera Bread that's going to be in that location. Also on the horizon is the White Dog Cafe, which is coming. That's up across from Baskin and Robbins in that area up there. It's a huge name restaurant from downtown. They're going to relocate here to Radnor, which is where everyone should be. Also, we have Matador that's coming on North Wayne Avenue, and I think there's one other one that I hear is in the works. I haven't gotten the plans for yet. And there's a few small ones that are coming in. During the past 3 months, we had the Mainline Jazz Festival, which was June the 12th, which was a very nice affair. We had the World Team Tennis at Villanova, which was July the 8th to the 12th. We had a LXM Pro Sports Lacrosse event, which was the first time for this young fella. He's a Radnor graduate who is going around the country putting on these events. And his name is Max Ritz. His parents, I think, his father's a dentist in the township. We also had, as of yesterday, was the Wayne Fall Festival, which was a nice affair. It was actually my birthday, so I couldn't stay long. Coming up, we have the Conservancy Party at the Cottage, which will be September the 24th, and the Harvest Festival at the Willows, which will be October the 24th, 2010. Wanted to bring your attention to, I made some calls because I wanted to find out where in Radnor Township could residents get the flu shots. And so I called around to Gennardi's, to CVS, and the other couple of places that typically have flu shots, and came up with a short list. And that list is in your package, but just so that the residents are aware, Gennardi's on Tuesday, which is tomorrow, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Gennardi's Pharmacy, and then Thursday, October the 14th, from 3 to 7 p.m. You can call the number to schedule a time for you to go in, 610-989-0781. CVS Pharmacy had shots on Saturday the 18th, so that's passed, but on September the 21st, which is tomorrow, from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., October the 18th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., Friday, October the 29th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., and Thursday, November 11th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. There's a telephone number for CVS where you can call and inquire about the shots, 610-688-3052. And then Rite Aid, this is the one at 127 West Lancaster Avenue near the movie theater. You have to call and make arrangements. That number is 610-293-1496. You would ask for Stephanie Pittman or David Harootunin, Harootunin. Sorry for messing up his name. I apologize to him. And there's a telephone number, which is 610-293-1496. And then the Wayne Acme will have flu shots on Friday, October the 15th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The phone number is 610-971-9074. Also in your packet, you'll find 2 flyers on the National Take Back Initiative, where it shows Radnor Township as being one of the locations where you can bring in drugs that are expired or you're no longer using them to be turned in. These are the controlled substances. Also, Delaware County has a national take back and is showing locations throughout the county. So there's 2 lists, one for when Radnor Township is having theirs to 2 locations here at the township, and one at the senior center, and one for the Delaware County. You also have what I typically send out are your health alerts from the Pennsylvania Department of Health. I send those out as I get them. I think there's 7 or 8 of them there. Mr. Chairman, so ends my report.
Thank you, Mr. Taltone. Are there any questions on any of this for him?
I just have a question as far as the National Take Back Initiative. How is this being broadcast to the public, the township residents?
It's on our website. The police put it on our website, and it's on the county's website.
Would you like to reiterate, I know you've done this last spring, what the website is for any new citizens in our township?
Yes, that's Radnor Township's website is www.radnor.com. www.radnor.com.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Taltone? Okay. Thanks very much for your comprehensive report. We're now going to move on to old business. And before we start that, I should note that I've been informed that we need to vacate this meeting room in approximately 1 hour. There's a meeting of a committee of the Board of Commissioners that will be taking over this room. So again, we have to be out of here by then. And if we're running much past 6:05, I should announce that I will have to leave myself and turn the chair over to Amy Wishner, our vice chair. First item under old business is a discussion of Chapter 115, the Animal Control Ordinance. And a lot of that deals with rabies, so I would like to indicate that anyone interested in seeing, who has not seen it before, the Radnor Health Matters program on rabies that Dr. Donato and I taped last spring is still available on the website that you just heard about. So if you're interested in learning more about rabies and the issues associated with that, as well as about feral cats, then you should for sure look at that program. Okay, now we have a couple of documents. One is in our packets. We had the current code, Chapter 115, which is the one that was updated on May 1st, 2010. And that's in our packets. It's Code of the Township of Radnor, PA, Volume 110, updated, and it's the date, Chapter 115, Animals Article 1 definition and so forth. That's the one we will use to compare with the draft, and I'd like to thank Dr. Offit for taking the initiative to put this into some kind of order that that makes sense in trying to look at what changes we think we need to make in this chapter prior to adopting it and sending it on to the Board of Commissioners for their consideration prior to it becoming the official ordinance of Radnor Township. So we have a lot of pages in the revised one, which is the one, or the proposed revisions, which is the one with the red colored type that indicates what the changes are. And again, that's very helpful, Dr. Offit. Thanks. And what I would propose doing, because the way I did this was to do it page by page, and when we've reached some consensus on each page, go on to the next page. If anyone has a better way of doing that, then please let me know. But seeing none, then let's do it. We have a number of definitions, and the first grouping of them deal with titles of, well, we have animals, what kind of animals, which are dogs, cats, and other mammals. There's no change in that.
Excuse me, can I just make a suggestion
Sure.
for those who aren't as familiar with this document, just to make it a little easier to follow? Probably the easiest one to go off of is the one that has the track changes in there, and anything that is in track changes is not in the original language of the ordinance, just so everybody knows. There were
Right.
a couple late spring, early summer comments that were received, and that I just merged it all together and merged it with the original to highlight the differences in the document. So for instance, in the definition section, feral cat and license, those are completely new definitions.
Right.
Just because I know we had a couple different versions going around, but if that's helpful.
Okay. And again, since you were, the reason I referred to it as being the one with red ink is that's the way my copy printed out. So I don't know if that was applicable to everybody else, the track changes.
I have the one in the packet, which for me is black and white.
Okay.
So, but-
Well, I'm going to use the one with the red because that's
Yeah,
where
that
my
makes it
notes
easier.
are. So as you've indicated, feral cat and licensed are the additions in that grouping. That said, I think since the job is referenced later on in the chapter, we need to have a definition of health officer. It's one of the principal jobs with which we as a board relate, and there are functions that the health officer clearly carries out with regard to quarantining and of animals, inspection of homes for home quarantine and so forth. So I would think that we should add that after the definition of director. I'm going to put off Dr. Offit going over, and we can do that separately, just simple editorial things where capitals and, for example, Board of Health, the TH under the definition is missing on my copy anyway. But we don't need to do that. Is there anything that anyone else wants to talk about with regard to that particular page, first page? Okay, seeing none, I have a question with regard to owner, the definition of owner. I'm not sure, and perhaps those who worked on this revision can tell me how someone who simply regularly feeds an animal has ownership of that animal.
The thought behind that is if you're regularly caring for an animal, that you're taking responsibility for that animal. So somebody would own an animal they're feeding regularly, so it can be vaccinated for rabies appropriately.
So this was in part to address the feral cat issue, because we want to ensure that these cats are well cared for, and there are many community volunteers that are out caring for these cats that are in the wild, but we wanted to do what we could do to ensure their vaccination. So.
Good, thank you.
And in fact, along with that is, again, that is the rabies issue coming back to that, and we have recently had about 10 miles from here a rabid feral cat that was exposed to a number of people.
Okay, thank you. The last thing I have on that particular page is the update of May 1st, 2010 has a definition of veterinarian, and this one, as far as I can tell, does not. And I think we should have such a definition, since that particular job is referenced many times in this chapter. Okay. Anything else with regard to that first page? Okay, then we'll move on to Article 2, rabies control. Dr. Offit, you had raised a question in the draft that I printed out, and which I've annotated with regard to the clause starting with unless. Was that clarified, or?
Well, I was my comment actually, and it didn't, I just, the very end of it, and to be unlicensed in Radnor Township, it doesn't make any sense to me, the way it's written there. To me, it would make more sense to end the sentence with unless the owner has written proof of such vaccination, period.
And I think with the proposed licensing for cats, that makes perfect sense to eliminate that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's
So
now
we would
perfect.
end that with, as Amy Wishner has suggested, with the word vaccination. Unless the owner has written proof of such vaccination.
Right.
Okay, great. That makes sense to me, too. Anybody else have anything on that page? Just one minor thing. Down under 115-3, we have seizure of unlicensed and/or, and we use the and/or formulation in that paragraph. I might suggest that we, because of that we might up above with the new wording licensed in paragraph C and D, where it has licensed and. Should we have the word slash or in that area as well, or?
Excuse me, I think licensing is predicated on vaccination. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
One of the reasons we put licensure through the document in places that it wasn't explicitly described before was to do our best to encourage that all pet owners have their animals licensed, and then in that way we would ensure the vaccination, because vaccination is required for licensure. So that's why that's added in there. So because we want all of the animals to be licensed, not to have some licensed and some vaccinated.
That being the case, then in 115-3, do we want to continue to say current license and/or vaccination certificate? Does that make sense? Hmm?
You have to be vaccinated to be licensed.
Yes.
I don't think it can be
Picking up
and.
on your point.
It can be an or, I don't know. I mean, you just can say vaccinated and licensed if you want. I don't think it really makes a big difference how that's worded in this. I think the intent is to try to, ensure that your animal is vaccinated and at the same time licensed, and to be vaccinated, you have to be licensed.
Herb, are you making reference to the first sentence where it looks like it says deleted under licensed and/or?
Which paragraph are you in?
Sorry, 115-3A, the first sentence.
Yeah.
That actually isn't deleted. It looks as if the formatting deletes over by the front of the sentence to format it properly. It does look like it's saying delete license and/or, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think license and/or belongs in there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. Is just my memory serving me correctly, is there currently something in the township that we're supposed to be licensing the cats? Because I thought it was just that we were licensing dogs. Have we?
I think
'cause-
we're making the
We're making a
movement to
recommendation.
license cats.
Okay, so should that be also in here, or is that something separate? I'm not, that the cats should also, I mean, there's nothing in it, I know that the dogs are licensed, but do we put that in this type of,
It's been added actually under the previous section under C.
Yeah.
The owner of such dog or cat shall have such dog or cat licensed and vaccinated.
okay, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, there's a lot of words there.
Yeah.
I guess my question or recommendation would be maybe this draft ought to be posted on the web for everybody, because we're talking about this and we haven't read it publicly. We're sort of looking at it piecemeal. Would that be appropriate, do you think? After we reach some sort of a consensus here at the end of the meeting, that we post this, or is that out of order, I guess?
I don't think it's required to put on the web. At this point, it's still kind of a work in progress. It's still draft. But as soon as the Board of Health has settled on a draft for comment, at that point, I would suggest having it put on the website prior to having it sent to the Board of Commissioners for approval, for introduction.
You're probably going to want to have some public comment on this.
Yeah, I think, because normally what will happen when the Board of Health is completely in consensus on this document, it will go to the Board of Commissioners for introduction. After introduction, there'll be a 30-day waiting period, and then we'll have a hearing on the ordinance, and we can vote on that ordinance and put it into law. So I think it's important to have the opportunity for the public to come here and make comment maybe at the next meeting or the meeting after that.
So you would have it posted for that 30-day period?
Well, you can have it posted as long as you like here in this forum. I would say once you're all settled on and accept what you have in front of you, then it should be publicized as a draft.
Good.
Well, we should finish this process so that we can get to that point. So if we can, let's move on to page 3. Any comments on that, the changes indicated? Hearing none, we'll move on to page 4. Any comments on that?
Well, the comment about the cost at the bottom there, the B on the bottom, so I'm on 115-6, letter B, unvaccinated dogs and cats shall be euthanized immediately. If the owner is unwilling to have this done, the unvaccinated animal shall be vaccinated immediately and placed in strict isolation for a period of 6 months. So, and my point was, is this, I mean, I don't view it as something that that taxpayers of the township should be paying for if the owner is not willing to pay for it, but we may disagree on that. Maybe others feel that we should. But the way it is here, it just says it shall be done without saying who's going to pay for it.
I was just going to comment that in the previous section, it does comment all expenses associated with the enforcement of subsection C shall be borne by the owner. I feel like there's probably a number of different places in this document where that could be said, and I don't know from a logistics standpoint if we just put it at the end of whatever section we're concerned about.
Well,
rather than individually listing it in each spot.
Right, or maybe leaving it general. I'm not sure where you're looking at, but taking out from C, so it just leaves it broader rather than restricting it to C. You were just reading from something that says.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just above one. It's in 115-4. It's letter D. And I felt like that kind of was just a.
Yeah, so maybe it should be, so taking out something else, all expenses associated with enforcement of this ordinance or something like that.
Yeah.
Shall be borne by the owner.
I put a note for that potentially to be number 9, which is on the next page. So B9, where it says all costs associated with enforcement of shall be borne by the owner, just as that previous one is worded. Because I found about 6 or 7 different places where costs are a concern.
Okay, I mean, I was just wondering if there's some other way to state it, that, you know, something about all expenses associated with the enforcement of this ordinance relevant to an individual animal shall be borne by that animal's owner, or, you know, something
Yeah,
more general.
I
So
think
it can
that's
be
very.
stated once, and,
Yeah, I think that's very appropriate, and we can make that number 9 if we want to.
Well, let's think that through. Mr. Taltone goes, if you appeal and wish to have your cat home or dog home quarantined, and Mr. Taltone goes to your home to inspect your facility, are we going to bill the owner for his time in doing that? It's just a question. I mean, when we say all expenses, we're going to have a lot of expenses that are normal for the enforcement of any ordinance on behalf of a governmental entity.
What have we done in the past? Larry?
Is your question, do we charge separate from me going out?
Right,
No.
okay.
I guess that's why Section D here says specifically this subsection C, because subsection C is referring specifically to confinement, so that if, I guess, home quarantine is not an option and that the animal has to be quarantined in a veterinary facility, that cost would go to the
Right.
owner. So maybe that,
but then that B at the bottom of whatever page this
Right.
is, it has this, is the same thing.
so inserting the concept of this quarantine will take place in an approved animal facility at the cost of the, with the cost borne by the owner, or whatever is proper grammar.
I think it should be specified there.
Or
that
at
that
home
is the
after
case.
inspection and approval.
You know,
So
the
that
other
the-
thing we could do is maybe repeat that under section 115-16, enforcement, and spell out particularly what would be the costs borne by the owner.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Because it just simply says, the provisions of this article shall be enforced by the animal warden and/or police department. But we could be a little more specific and narrow it down as to what responsibilities the owner may have.
Yeah, I think we can reasonably work on that. I'm sorry, I think we can reasonably work on achieving that, and maybe do it in the way you've suggested, Dr. Humphrey, or just have a separate paragraph, costs, and spell out which ones would be borne by the owner of the animal in question.
I think that's a great idea.
It's just sort of summarizing what we would have
Yeah.
scattered through the document.
Yep.
Okay. Now we're on the page that begins with subparagraph B, 115-6, subparagraph B. It begins with the words, "Unvaccinated dogs and cats shall be euthanized immediately." So we're on that page. Any comments regarding the proposed changes? It's in this particular subparagraph that my notes indicate a question about whether we should flesh out just a little bit what it is that the health officer does, so that citizens again should be aware of what they might have to do in order to successfully appeal to have a home quarantine situation.
I think that's what the points 1 through 8 are in
Okay.
spelling it out on the
Yeah.
next page.
Larry, did you have a comment?
No, I was going to do the same thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I must have made that note. Okay. Any others on that page? Moving on to the next page, then, comments, questions on this?
Well, assuming I'm on the right page, I agreed with the comment about leaving in the section about cats at large.
Yeah, I was looking at that as well, and that probably just getting rid of that is the first 115-9, because again, anyone who's feeding them owns them. So it's almost an obsolete clause.
I'm lost right now. Which paragraph are we on? Which article and
What?
paragraph?
Article 3, control of dogs and cats, section 115-9, cats at large. The question is, do we still need it there or not? I don't think it hurts to have it in.
Yeah, I actually recommended keeping it in there just to balance it out along with dogs at large, the 115-7, just above. And it just sort of reiterates the responsibilities.
I guess in order to close the loop on the concept that we're trying to expand upon here, that there really shouldn't be unowned feral cats and that regular feeding constitutes ownership and all the responsibilities that go with that, then maybe what we should do is just add a sentence for this to go back in saying, we're saying any feeding of feral cats is to be discouraged, and then put the concept in here that regular feeding of a feral cat constitutes ownership and,
I agree.
Okay,
responsibilities.
sounds good. Any other comments on I have, so the existing 115-9, which is, I think, labeled applicability.
Yeah, that was in the previous.
Yeah, it is. It's from the
original.
the existing one. And it says the provisions of this chapter shall not apply to any guide dog accompanying any blind person or to animals used in any fire or police department activities of the township. My problem with that is that it says the provisions of this entire chapter, and this chapter deals with vaccinations and licensing and so forth. And I'm certain that we don't intend to have unlicensed or unvaccinated guide dogs.
That's a good catch. So maybe we should say with the exception of licensing and vaccination.
Okay.
Can you think of anything else that we need to do, Lynn?
I think that's fair. It's a good comment to put in.
With the exception.
And I'm assuming we start renumbering at that point.
Yeah, we would have to. All right. Anything else on that page, which ends with 115-12, the heading anyway of that paragraph, which would then be renumbered to 115-13, I assume. Seizure and redemption. And that continues on the next page.
Now, do we want to go over the public notification of confirmed rabies cases? That's a new heading.
Again, which,
That's at the bottom of, the next.
Currently,
It's not paginated,
in the
but-
copy we have, it's labeled 115-10. public
okay,
notification.
yeah, okay.
I mean, I liked what was suggested for the, with what's deleted and what's added. The way it reads with those deletions and additions, I liked what was there.
Okay, I do too.
Yeah, maybe we should read that.
So the way it would read is, the Director of Community Development shall immediately issue a notice informing the public when a case of rabies has been confirmed in Radnor Township or any contiguous municipality, and emphasizing the prohibition against domestic cats and dogs from running at large in the Township of Radnor. The notice informing the public shall include publishing in a newspaper of general circulation within the township, posting on the Radnor Township website, and/or including on the community bulletin board of the township's televised government access channel.
I have a quick question. It seems like, is it the Director of Community Development? That seems like something our health officer would typically be alerting us to. Is it?
Larry could probably.
The Director of Community Development is, on the organization chart of the township, is the health officer, is the person to whom the health officer reports.
I guess my only other suggestion is, do we want to say informing the public and the township commissioners, or we don't need that there?
Well, the purpose of this is to inform the public. The township commissioners are probably part of that public, but again, going up the chain of command, the Director of Community Development reports, I guess, to the township manager, and the township manager, of course, reports to the Board of Commissioners. So
Okay,
I
so
think
are
the
we
pur-
happy with it as I read it off with those changes?
Anybody unhappy with it?
No, I think, this is the way, at least the first part of the sentence is the way it read in the original document, so the Director of Community Development. And I think what prompted all this was the immediacy of the posting that's needed. So this really, I think, gives direction, gets the information out to the public very quickly, certainly in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
And the other concept that is expanded here is about when there is a case of rabies locally or perilocally, that cats should not be at large either. And it was to address the concerns that have been raised about the lack of feasibility for a cat leash law and all those things. So this addresses that in a different way.
Right. Now, in this, if we can move on then to seizure and redemption. The paragraph beginning, it shall be the duty of the animal warden and/or township police to seize and detain any dogs. My question here is why we've not used the word cats in there as well, dogs or cats. The language here says dog or dogs, and I don't know whether we need that, but that's a minor editorial thing, if we just pluralize dogs in the first place. Well, my question is whether or not, with everything we've said before this, whether our intention shouldn't be to include cats.
Well, especially because later, under A, B, C, and D, we're saying cats there,
Right.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I have that, a note about that under right of entry. The animal warden and/or police department are hereby authorized and empowered to go upon any premises and enter any building to seize and detain any dogs or cats.
It looks to me, just by going down to 115.3, letter C and D, dogs and cats are actually B as well. I think it was just probably the word was not added in there.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah, but we have to be careful and be consistent paragraph by paragraph. The document should be internally consistent.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I guess we're saying add that to 115-12, seizure and redemption, and then also, do we want to add it?
I wanted to add it to 115-14, confinement of female dogs in heat. I wanted to add cats
Right.
to that as well.
So we say dog or dogs, cats or cats, right?
I think it can, as you were saying, Kirk,
I think you just pluralize it in the first place.
dogs and cats.
Okay.
Okay, anything else through 115-17, violations and penalties? Anyone?
So are we on this last page going to, is that where we'll add cost to township, cost to owner?
Yeah.
Under its own heading, or should it go under enforcement?
I would recommend putting it under enforcement because I think that's where it pops up first in the preceding documents. So
Yeah.
you'll find it.
I think that's a good notion.
So the costs that we're saying the owner would bear are the costs, are we saying cost of vaccination, cost of quarantine, quarantine,
I think confinement is another
confinement, right?
word that's in here. Maybe
Yeah, look at
licensure.
Vaccination,
Right.
licensure.
Well, I think there are a whole grouping of costs, and we'll have to think those through and in conjunction with Mr. Taltone as well. For example, I'm not sure whether or not we set a precedent, but it's the only time in my experience on this board that we asked one of the people who appealed to have his animal home quarantined to pay for the cost of advertising the special meeting of this board called to consider that item. He did so, but that's a cost. And so, yeah.
Under 115-12C, it's relatively broadly stated, but I think it says payment of expenses. The owner of a dog or cat shall pay all reasonable expenses incurred by reason of its detention before the dog or cat is returned. It's broad enough that I think it's sort of at the discretion of whoever's enforcing that. I'm
Yeah,
sort of
and there
loath
may-
to
right,
really spell
spell-
everything
yeah,
out
I
in
think-
detail.
Right, because there may be something unforeseen
Yeah.
that, yeah. I think I agree with that as well. That in this
Okay,
case, we may be better off leaving it as reasonable rather than itemizing.
Because we'll surely miss something.
Right.
Yeah.
And one thing that
Just-
helps with this update is there's going to be no more need to appeal the decision. So all of those dollars and hours that have been required in the past will be gone because it's spelled out what are the requirements for home quarantine. So.
Excuse me. Okay. So the subcommittee working on this has enough information to provide us with another draft as promptly as possible, and that we can review and move toward the notion of putting it on air, so that and having invite interested citizens to come to our next meeting and comment on that. Great. All right. Good job, all. Now we come to goals and objectives. And again, I need to thank Dr. Offit for her outstanding work and taking the initiative to pull this stuff together for us to consider. It's a lot easier when you have it managed in an easy way like this. So thanks, Laura. Does everyone have a copy of what I'm looking at are the Radnor BOH goals 2010 to 2011, top 6 and additional goals? Is everyone looking at that same thing? Okay. The floor is open for comments, questions.
I can explain a little bit what I did. There was a request to truncate some of the goals just so they'd be a little bit more concise. So that's what the first 2 pages are. And then on the back is just all the verbatim language that the different members of the board have provided when proposing different goals for this year. And we had started some initial discussion last time that some of the additional goals may be umbrellaed under some of the top goals, but we'd not yet gotten to that point of where we thought that that would be appropriate to absorb, or if we wanted to do that, or how to proceed at this point. So this is kind of where we stood as of the end of last year.
All right. Anyone prepared to comment this evening? I made some notes then, which I'll just go over as briefly as I possibly can. I think we have, in my view, distilling this material in a different way, 4 or 5 areas. And having said that, I should back up a step and indicate that my experience tells me that while we could have 10 or 12, and certainly there are a lot of things we want to do and that need doing, but that will lead us down the path to failure because we'll be biting off much more than we can chew. So when I look at the material that Dr. Offit has pulled together from our previous discussions and all of our comments that we sent her via email, I come up with 4 or 5 broad areas of goals and objectives. And the first one is one we've been spending a lot of time at this meeting talking about, and that is to do something in the area of animal control. And that obviously is something that we're well underway to prepare revisions for Chapter 115 and forward them to the Board of Commissioners. And I've added a date that we can consider by October 31st, because again, goals without target dates tend to be goals that we'll never meet. So I think we need to look at being reasonable about the dates, but certainly including them. And that, under animal control, would obviously include the feral cat situation and develop some objectives within that. For some of the other issues, I put under the broad heading of Radnor Health Matters, and my goal would be to, by certainly this date next month, having developed a list of programs for 2010, 2011, averaging about 1 every other month, and to begin to recruit experts to participate in that. So we should have a list, in my view, and again, this is just one person developing this sort of thing. And that would subsume a lot of other areas that we could begin to address through public education using the Township's television station, cable television station. The third big area is something we started last year, and Dr. Leader has been working on this, I know, over the summer. Prepare a position paper regarding the Delaware County Health Department that we could, at some point in the not too distant future, present to the Board of Commissioners. And my goal for a date would be certainly by the end of October of this year, and assuming adoption by the Board of Commissioners, at that point we could have something to forward to the Delaware County Council with regard to that. I think that's one of the, in my view, one of the more important things we can accomplish in this year. Then there are a number of goals that have to, in the printed material, that have to do with children's health matters. And I worked that out as working with the appropriate Radnor Township School District staff to develop a list of topics of mutual concern, which we could then develop into objectives, how we tie those in to Radnor Health Matters, the second issue, that, and how to work with the Radnor Township School District folks so that we use their e-minder system which is very effective for getting a lot of information out to parents. I know I use it and access it all the time. For those who don't know what that is, that's people with children in the Radnor schools, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school, subscribe to what they call e-minders, and you get those on your email, and you can see what that particular school which your child attends is up to in a number of different areas: athletics, parent meetings, different things going on, even outside groups, and that's why it's particularly amenable to what we are trying to do. For example, the Radnor Education Foundation and the Radnor High School Scholarship Fund both use the e-minder system to get out information relevant to what they are respectively doing. So that would be a wonderful thing for us to do, I think. And sort of trailed off weakly here by writing down utilizing the cable channel scrolls as effectively as possible to get out a lot of information when we, as well as other ways. But I think we can use that more effectively than we're now doing. And between the e-minders and the scrolls and Radnor Health Matters, we'll be doing, I think, a valuable service for our citizens by providing public education about public health matters. Okay, that's where I am with this. I can, of course, prepare that for sending out as well.
I mean, we did sort of essentially vote on, these priorities and actually some of the school health issues. And, I guess I sort of grouped it into kind of animal health and school health. I like your idea of, I'm about to sneeze here, about meeting with the school health people. I think Andrea Chapego is kind of a logical person to talk about what we've come up with and sort of see also what her priorities are for school health, and the superintendent's priorities are, and see, are they meshing, or sort of where are we with them. So I mean, I think we could, we could go ahead with that. I mean, I'd be interested in pursuing that. And so I don't know if we want to in some way kind of adopt what's here, or, I mean, I don't really want us just to have like another meeting. It seems to me, we don't have that many meetings in the year. So in some way, I feel like I would like us to, decide what we're going to move ahead on. So.
Just to refresh everyone's memory, we did do a kind of ranking. What we tried to do was to come up with what the average rank was, to at least try to reflect where the board as a whole wanted to prioritize the goals. And then we did want to cull it down to a few, to your point that if you bite off too much, then nothing gets done, because we need to focus our efforts. And then just so we didn't lose track of the additional goals, since some of them could be subsumed in the others, those are there. But the top 6, or you could say 5 if you wanted to say animal-related issues, because a lot of that is very intertwined. But I would agree, it would be nice to come up with a final set of goals so that we can start tackling them.
I agree with that. Unfortunately, as I indicated at the beginning of this meeting, I'm going to have to pack up and leave and turn the chair over to Amy Wishner, our vice chair. And, whatever this body decides will be fine with me. With regard to, I think in the area of children's health, I would like to be part of any meeting that we have with the Radnor Township School District staff, and Andrew Chapago is one of the logical people to include in that meeting. I'm sure they have their own agendas, and I think it would be profitable to try and work together. But excuse me.
Well, I mean, I can certainly contact, well, I guess we should decide. I mean, are we going to say that we adopt these goals? I guess I would say I move that we adopt these goals, and they are, you know, as you have them listed here. I mean, maybe they could be sort of categorized as, you know, animal management issues, listing those, school health issues, listing those. I guess to me, the sort of the Radnor Health Matters is more the means to an end rather than kind of an end in itself. So, you know, really for everything we're doing, I mean, I think Herb's idea about coming up with a list of Radnor Health Matters, you know, sort of a plan for the year makes sense, and hopefully that will reflect what these goals are.
I think that's a good idea, and maybe what we can do so we don't lose track of some of these new ideas is to include them in the list of additional goals, just so we have them somewhere. So as we chip our way through, we don't lose track of all the good ideas that have been raised. And I can add that to that list, because that is kind of one of those things we know we'll be doing that, but we don't want to lose track of that we need to do it.
I mean, I guess in terms of the school health things, maybe I could see if Andrea could come to our next meeting, and so we could have a discussion and, you know, and say, and I could prepare her by saying, you know, these are some of the areas we've been thinking of, but we want to hear what you and the superintendent and the school nurses and the faculty and students, et cetera, what everybody is thinking, and, you know, how can we move ahead together on them?
Do you want to restate your motion, and I'll second it? Then we can discuss it.
Let's see. I move that the Radnor Township Board of Health agree on the following goals for our 2010-2011 session.
Yeah.
And they are under animal management, rabies, as it's written here, finalize the rabies ordinance revisions, for the Board of Commissioners to represent the position of the Radnor Board of Health, and also under animal management, help manage the feral cat population in a humane way, and continued education of the residents of Radnor on animal-related matters, and Lyme disease and deer ticks education. And I would just leave it at that, because the means to it could, you know, whether it's Radnor Health Matters or Radnor TV channel or whatever, I don't think that needs to be stated. And then school health issues, reduction in junk foods available in school cafeterias, encouraging more physical activity during the school day, and, you know, discussions with school, you know, appropriate school personnel to develop consensus on other issues and means to reach
this goal. Or something like
reach these goals. And then, maybe a separate one that says utilize Radnor Health Matters in utilize Radnor Health Matters for a variety of, for Board of Health identified issues, and so sort of under that could be something about develop a list of proposed programs for the 2010-2011 session. And then additional goals maybe also could come under additional child health issues, additional animal management issues, and sort of other public health concerns. So maybe, again, just to try and sort of group things. So that's my motion.
I'll second it.
One question that was raised on our side here is just the concept of the letter to the, about the Delaware Public Health Department. If that, we
Right.
should include that in the
Yeah, I
additional
mean-
goals, or,
Well, I mean, it wasn't in the top 6.
I know, I mean, it wasn't.
But we did talk about, you know, the possible need of forming a
Right.
Department of Health in Delaware County.
Right, so,
I think that
I would like
letter
to
should-
hold on to that
yeah.
concept in
Yeah.
the
Right,
additional
right, right.
goals, because I think
Yeah.
additional doesn't mean
Right.
won't do.
I agree, so that should be added also in
Okay,
the
so I can add that.
additional
That'll be an
goals, right?
amended motion.
Okay.
So, right, yeah.
Okay, I can go ahead and just rearrange the goals as they have been approved by the Board of Health to reflect these categorizations, to make
Okay.
them easier to understand.
So can we vote on these priorities? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So the motion carries. So we have an outline for what we're going to do this year. Radnor, so further under old business is Radnor Reach, and I have to find out when the next meeting is, because I'm our liaison, and I don't know when it is, so I have to find that out. And Larry, you don't happen to know that, right? Or John? No, okay. I mean, it's my responsibility, I have to find that out. New business?
I just have one thing to quickly go over. There's a gentleman who has a cat, speaking of all the wonderful rabies discussion. He has a cat in quarantine right now, and it's about 5 months. He's an elderly gentleman and is really having some issues with not having his cat at home. He wasn't able to make it this evening, but I'd like to ask for everybody to comment in that. We were thinking that Larry and I could help this gentleman just by getting himself organized, inspect his home, and make sure that he is able to have the cat at home. Like I say, it is one currently in quarantine, but I think he really needs his cat at home. So if nobody has a problem with that, not that I'm laying any guilt out there or anything, but we'd really like to help him out. And his cat has been mentioned in previous notes, in previous meetings.
What's the cat's name?
It's Tiger Kerrigan. And he is having a hard time. I think we're going to have to spell things out and hang signs for the gentleman and see how that works. But
Yeah, I mean, as long as the quarantine is maintained in a safe manner, obviously, we want to be flexible in the circumstance, I think.
did anybody have any questions about the specifics of behind this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
I just have, I'm the board representative to the EAC, the Environmental Advisory Council. I went to the last meeting. I have nothing to report. And then their next meeting is on Thursday that I'll be going to.
Thank you. I know that we need to be getting out of this room, so if there is no further business, we will stay adjourned. We will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.